Summary. In the poem The Palanquin Bearers, Sarojini Naidu deals with the way in which the palanquin bearers carry a royal bride in her journey. The poem is a representation of the prevalent sociopolitical and cultural conditions of the time, which we are going to discuss in the course of the unit. Sarojini Naidu was an Indian independence activist, a poet as well as a politician. A renowned orator and accomplished poet, Sarojini Naidu is often known by the name, the Nightingale of India. Sarojini was initiated into the Indian political arena by iconic stalwarts of the Indian freedom struggle, Gopal Krishna Gokhale and Gandhi. Sarojini was deeply affected by the partition of Bengal in 1905 and decided to join the Indian freedom struggle. Sarojini Naidu religiously followed Gandhi's example and actively supported his other campaigns like the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, the Khilafat issue. Later, she also published two other collections called The Bird of Time and The Broken Wings, both of which attracted huge readership in both India and England. Sarojini Naidu's poem The Palanquin Bearers states how the palanquin bearers are carrying a royal bride in a palanquin. As they do so, they sing a song along with the movement of their body. The comparisons in the form of imagery are: the bride is swaying along with the palanquin as a flower does with a gentle breeze. She seems to be gliding like a small bird as she dreams about her future and smiles. Sarojini Naidu's The Palanquin Bearers apparently seems to describe the royal bride as she is being carried in the palanquin bearers in the palanquin. The palanquin bearers usually are sturdy men who used to carry the palanquin gently so that the journey is comfortable. The gentleness and delicate nature of the bride is being compared to the journey. The imagery from nature of flower and bird creates a sense of delicacy, softness as well as grandeur. In the poem on the grasshopper and the cricket, the poet celebrates the music of the grasshopper and the cricket to speak about how the music of nature is always prevalent and never dies irrespective of the seasons. John Keats, the 31st of October 1795 to the 23rd of February 1821, was one of the main figures of the second generation of Romantic poets along with Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley. John Keats composed 5 of his 6 great odes at Wentworth Place in April and May, and, although it is debated in which order they were written, Ode to Psyche opened the published series. The ideas behind the French Revolution, liberty, equality, fraternity, rights, democracy, etc., influenced the poets and writers of the Romantic age. The common man was the concern of the revolution, and the common man also became the concern and subject matter of poetry of the Romantic poets. The Romantic age today is known for 6 major male Romantic poets. They are William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William Blake, John Keats, P.B. Shelley and Lord Byron. Romanticism was largely a reaction against the prevailing neoclassical school of writing, which laid great stress on form, structure and conventions of poetic diction. The Romantic poet John Keats' poem on the grasshopper and the cricket is a sonnet, written in December 1816. To speak about the beauty of nature, Keats had chosen 2 little creatures, the grasshopper and the cricket. The poet not just represents the vitality and joyous temperament of nature even when it is the scorching hot of summer or the bleak and bitter cold of winter. What Keats wanted to emphasize in the poem is that the voice of nature is never at rest and that the music will carry on forever. Nature not only provides solace with its beautiful scenery, but also at the same time made human being enjoy its music, which is represented in the poem through the grasshopper and the cricket. G.M. Hopkins grew up surrounded by a rich cultural milieu which developed his language, intellectual depth, poetic profoundness, creative independence and talent with the sounds of words. Moral scrupulosity affected Hopkins even as a child, and his musings were reflected in his poetry. Hopkins also met Robert Bridges during his time in Oxford. Bridges would go on to become one of Hopkins's close confidant. Hopkins was well versed in the poetic traditions of his times and the times before him. The poet made a conscious decision to abstain from metric forms in his poetry, which he believed constrained the poetic expressions of many of his contemporary poets such as Bridges and Swinburne. In Pied Beauty, Hopkins invents a new form of sonnet called the curtal sonnet, which comprises of 10.5 lines. He reduces the octave to 6 lines and the sestet to 4.5. The poem commences with praise to God for dappled things. The poet then goes on to elaborate what these things are. A patch of farmland exhibits different colors, varying shades of green, yellow, and brown depending on the state of cultivation, whether it has crops growing on it, or has been recently plowed or is lying fallow. This poem is a miniature or set piece, and a kind of ceremonial celebration. It starts and concludes with the greater glory of God, and praise to God always, giving it a traditional essence. The poem is thus a hymn of creation, praising God by praising the created world. One thing that strikes the reader is why Hopkins specifically chose to extol the virtues of dappled things. The mention of the chestnut, however, can be seen to denote a moral tone. Hopkins first introduces a landscape whose characteristics derive from man's alteration, the fields, and then includes trades, gear, tackle, and trim as diverse items that are man-made. Hopkins' Pied Beauty is a miniature and a kind of ritual compliance. The poem begins and ends with differences in the maxims of the Jesuit order, as can be seen in the lines, "To the greater glory of God," and "Praise to God always." Hopkins celebrates the beauty of things that are made up of different colors. "These pied things a gift from God," says Hopkins. Pied Beauty is a poem about contrast and difference. Hopkins makes ample use of his beloved compounding techniques in order to highlight the beauty of these rapid changes, the fleeting quality of all that surrounds him.